Commander Lisa Grant stood at the bridge window of the transport ship Aurora, watching the stars drift past. She had made this journey dozens of times, ferrying colonists to new worlds across human territory. After 6,000 years in space, humanity had spread to hundreds of planets. But they still occupied only a small corner of the galaxy, always careful not to upset their alien neighbors. The year was 8024, and Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for exactly 6 millennia. Lisa remembered her history lessons well. When the Valorians first arrived at Earth in 2024, humanity was dying. Climate disasters, wars, and pollution had pushed the species to the edge of extinction. The aliens offered a choice: join the Council and receive the technology to save themselves, or refuse and face the end alone. Humanity accepted. They had no other option. The price seemed reasonable at first. Humans would limit their military development. They would expand only into territories the Council approved. They would defer to older, wiser species in matters of galactic importance. For a dying civilization, it felt like salvation. Lisa turned from the window and walked through the passenger section. Families slept in their cabins, dreaming of new lives on Novo Terra. Children played in the recreation area. An elderly couple sat together, holding hands and watching old videos from Earth. These people trusted her to deliver them safely, and she took that responsibility seriously. On the command deck, her communications officer looked up from his station. "Commander, we're receiving a priority broadcast from the Council Relay Network. Put it through," Lisa said, settling into her chair. The main screen flickered to life. The image that appeared made her blood run cold. It was the Valorian Supreme Imperator himself, the ruler of the most powerful empire in the known galaxy. His scales gleamed under harsh lights, and his 3 eyes fixed on the camera with an expression Lisa had learned to read as contempt. "Attention all species of the Galactic Council," the Imperator began. His voice was smooth and confident. "After careful deliberation, spanning several cycles, the Council leadership has reached a decision regarding the human species." Lisa's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Around her, the crew stopped their work to watch. "Humanity has been granted 6,000 years to prove their value to galactic civilization," the Imperator continued. "In that time, they have shown limited advancement. Their technology remains derivative. Their contribution to Council affairs is minimal. Their presence serves no critical function that other species cannot fulfill more efficiently." The words hung in the air like poison. Lisa felt her stomach twist. "Therefore, the Council has determined that humanity is redundant to galactic progress. To avoid unnecessary suffering, we offer a grace period of 30 standard days. During this time, all human populations may surrender their worlds peacefully. Evacuation to designated processing centers will be arranged. Those who comply will be treated with appropriate consideration. Those who resist will be pacified through cleansing operations." The Funger 6. The recent profession. The 7042, the screen went dark. For several heartbeats, nobody on the bridge moved. Then the communications station erupted with incoming signals. Every human ship, station, and colony was trying to reach everyone else at once. "Commander, what do we do?" her pilot asked, his voice shaking. Before Lisa could answer, a new transmission came through. This one was audio only, but she recognized the encryption signature. It was from Earth Defense Coordination Center. "All human vessels, this is Captain Greg Palmer broadcasting from Earth Command," the voice said. It was calm, almost eerily so. "You have all heard the Valorian Declaration. Do not panic. Do not attempt to negotiate with Council species. Do not deviate from your assigned duties. Repeat, maintain normal operations." Lisa exchanged confused glances with her crew. Maintain normal operations? They had just been sentenced to extinction. "All personnel are hereby ordered to activate Protocol Exodus," Greg continued. "Military commanders, report to your designated coordination centers. Civilian captains, begin unity proceedings with your crews and passengers. And remember this: 6,000 years ago, we chose to be peaceful. That was always a choice, not a weakness. The Council is about to learn What we chose not to show them. The transmission ended. Lisa sat very still for a moment. Protocol, Exodus. She had heard the term once, during her officer training, mentioned briefly in a classified briefing about contingency plans. The instructor had said it with a strange expression, something between fear and pride. At the time, Lisa assumed it was just another bureaucratic procedure, one of hundreds that existed in military databases but would never be used. Now she understood it was something else entirely. Navigation, change course, she said quietly. Take us to the nearest human station. Communications. Start the Unity proceedings. Get every person on this ship into the assembly hall. Commander. The colonists will panic, her first officer warned. No, Lisa said, surprising herself with her own certainty. They won't. Trust me. An hour later, Lisa stood before 300 colonists in the Aurora's main hall. She had expected chaos, tears, maybe even riots. Instead, the crowd was silent and focused. A woman from New Beijing stood beside a man from Toronto. A teenager from Lagos held the hand of an elderly woman from Moscow. Every nation, every culture, every language was represented in this small group. You've all heard the news, Lisa began. The Council has given us 30 days before they begin cleansing operations. That means genocide. That means they plan to eliminate humanity from the galaxy. 1. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but no one screamed or ran. But here's what the Council doesn't know, Lisa continued. 6,000 years ago, when humanity joined the Council, we made an agreement. We would limit our military technology. We would accept restrictions on our expansion. We would be peaceful members of galactic civilization. But we never agreed to forget who we were. We never agreed to give up the ability to defend ourselves. She pulled up a holographic display showing the Aurora's schematics. This ship is a transport vessel. But its hull can support weapons mounts. Its engines can be modified for combat speeds. Its cargo bays can be converted to fighter launch bays. Every civilian ship in the human fleet was designed this way. Not because we planned for war, but because we refused to be helpless. A young engineer in the crowd raised his hand. What do you need us to do? Lisa smiled. I need everyone to do what they do best. Engineers, you're going to help us retrofit this ship. Scientists, you'll work on countermeasures against Valorian weapons. Teachers, you'll organize information networks. Artists, you'll help with psychological warfare. Parents, keep the children calm and safe. Everyone has a role. Everyone matters. The colonists looked at each other. Then, one by one, they stood up. No arguments. No questions about why this person should lead instead of that person. No debates about whose nation or corporation had the right to make decisions. They simply got to work. Lisa watched them go, her heart pounding. In her pocket, she carried a small leather journal that had been passed down through her family for generations. It had belonged to her great-great-grandmother, a woman who lived through Earth's darkest days in the 21st century. The final entry was dated the day humanity joined the Council. We choose to be better, it read. We choose to wait, to learn, to grow. And if someday they give us no choice but to fight, we'll show them that peace was always our choice, not our limitation. Lisa looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valorian fleet was preparing for what they assumed would be an easy conquest. They thought they knew humanity. They thought 6,000 years of watching peaceful humans was enough to understand what the species was capable of. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On Earth, Greg Palmer stood in the newly activated War Coordination Facility beneath Geneva. The room had been sealed for 6 millennia, waiting for this exact moment. Around him, representatives from every human nation, corporation, and colony appeared on holographic displays. No one argued about jurisdiction or authority. No, Captain Greg Palmer had not slept in 48 hours. He stood in the War Coordination Facility, a massive underground complex that most humans never knew existed. The room hummed with activity as thousands of people worked at stations, coordinating humanity's response to the Valorian threat. Dr. Rachel Morgan approached him, carrying a data pad. She was the head of the Human Heritage Project, another secret program that had operated quietly for 6,000 years. Her face was tired but determined. "The archives are fully activated," she said. "Every weapons design, every military strategy, every tactical doctrine that humanity ever developed is now available to our forces. The simulations have been running since we joined the Council, updating everything for modern technology." Greg nodded slowly. "Did we really spend 6,000 years preparing for this moment?" "Not preparing for war," Rachel corrected. "Preparing to survive if war came to us. There's a difference. When the Valorians arrived at Earth, we were killing ourselves. We agreed to their terms because we wanted to live, but our leaders back then made a decision. They would accept peace, but never forget how to defend themselves if that peace was broken." On the screens around them, Greg watched reports flowing in from across human space. Factory stations were retooling their production lines. Mining operations were redirecting resources. Research facilities were activating projects that had existed only in theoretical databases for millennia. The speed of the transformation was staggering. "What scares me," Greg said quietly, "isn't the military preparation. It's how fast everyone agreed to work together. No arguments, no territorial disputes. Every government dissolved their individual authority within hours and reformed under the Unity Council. That kind of coordination shouldn't be possible." Rachel smiled grimly. "That's because the Council never understood what happened to humanity 6,000 years ago. They thought the Valorians civilized us. They thought we stopped fighting each other because we were scared of aliens. But that's not what happened." She pulled up historical data on her pad. By the time the Valorians arrived, humanity had already made its choice. We had reached the edge of extinction and decided that survival required unity. The climate disasters, the wars, the famines, they taught us that we either worked together or died together. The Valorians gave us the technology to heal our planet. But we had already learned the most important lesson. Humans are stronger together than apart. "And we never forgot that lesson," Greg said. "Never," Rachel confirmed. "Every human child learns it in school. Every colony is founded on it. For 6,000 years, while we played the role of junior members in the Council, we were actually practicing the one thing that makes us different from every other species out there. We know how to cooperate, completely and without reservation, when survival demands it." A young officer approached them. "Captain Palmer, we have confirmation from all military coordination centers. The fleets are assembling. Converted civilian vessels are reporting ready for combat operations. Total strength, 8,000 ships." Greg felt his chest tighten. 8,000 ships sounded impressive until you considered the Valorian war fleet numbered over 200,000 vessels. But Rachel had told him not to worry about numbers. "Quality over quantity," she had said. "We've been studying the Valorians for 6,000 years. Every trade negotiation taught us about their economy. Every peace conference revealed how they think. Every cultural exchange exposed their weaknesses. The Council thought our diplomats were weak. They never realized we were gathering intelligence on every species in the galaxy." Commander Alan Foster entered the coordination center, leading a team of xenobiologists. He looked excited despite the situation. "We've completed the vulnerability analysis," Alan announced. "Every Council species has exploitable weaknesses that we've identified through our observations. The Valorians have an honor-based command structure. If you capture their fleet commanders, entire battle groups lose effectiveness because subordinates wait for orders instead of adapting. The Krith communicate through quantum-linked biology. Disrupt that link and their hive mind fragments. The lumens exist as energy patterns. Specific frequencies can destabilize their forms without killing them. Knowledge as a weapon," Greg said. "The Council gave us 6,000 years to watch and learn. They thought we were harmless because we didn't build massive fleets. They never considered that intelligence could be more dangerous than firepower." On the civilian front, the transformation was equally dramatic. Lisa Grant's Aurora was just one of thousands of ships being converted for combat, but the real change was happening in the minds of humanity's citizens. Captain Helen Torres supervised the conversion of a massive orbital factory above Earth. The facility had produced commercial goods for centuries. Now, within days, it was manufacturing weapons components. The workers had adapted without complaint. Understanding what was at stake. "How are the civilians handling this?" Greg asked her through a video link. Helen's expression was thoughtful. "Better than expected. There's fear, of course. But mostly there's focus. People understand that this isn't about conquering anyone. It's about surviving. And humans are good at survival." She gestured to the workers behind her. These people come from 50 different nations. A month ago, they might have had political disagreements or cultural differences. Today, those things don't matter. They're humans, and humans take care of each other when it counts. Greg watched the workers move in perfect coordination, assembling weapons that would soon face the Valorian fleet. He thought about what the Council saw when they looked at humanity. A young species, peaceful to the point of weakness, technologically inferior, politically fragmented. They saw none of the truth. Dr. Rachel Morgan pulled up a holographic display of Council space. Red markers showed Valorian fleet positions. Blue markers showed human territories. The disparity was obvious. Humanity occupied less than 1% of galactic space. The Valorians are gathering their cleansing fleet at their forward base in the Arcturus sector, she explained. Intelligence suggests they're assembling 2,000 capital ships for the initial assault. They plan to hit Novoterra first, as a demonstration. "They're expecting us to surrender when they destroy a colony world," Greg said. "Exactly. They think we're soft because we've been peaceful. They don't understand that our peace was a choice, made from a position of strength, not weakness." A new message appeared on the central display. It was from Commander Jerry Collins, one of humanity's special operations leaders. He had been activated from his civilian job as a teacher just 48 hours ago. Like many humans in his generation, he had trained for military service that might never come. Now it had. "Unity Council, this is Collins. Teams are in position across Council space. We've placed operatives in key infrastructure points on 17 Valorian worlds. We're not targeting civilians, only military and government facilities. If we need to escalate beyond defensive operations, we're ready, but we prefer not to. Killing should always be the last option, not the first." Greg felt a surge of pride. Even preparing for war, humanity clung to its principles. They would fight to survive, but they wouldn't become the monsters the Council accused them of being. "Send a response to the Valorian Declaration," Greg ordered. "Make it clear and simple." The communications officer nodded. "What should it say?" Greg thought for a moment. "Your 30 days are noted. We suggest you reconsider. You have never seen humanity at war. Your 6,000 years of peace taught you nothing about what we chose to leave behind." The message was broadcast across all Council channels within minutes. On the Valorian homeworld, Supreme Imperator Vokrath read it and laughed. His military advisors assured him that humanity had limited capacity for resistance. The cleansing fleet would need 3 weeks at most to secure all human territories. They had no idea what was coming. In the Aurora's converted cargo bay, Lisa Grant watched her crew install the first weapon system. The engineer, a young man named Peter Hughes, worked carefully, following plans that had been hidden in the ship's computer core for years. "These designs were always here," Peter said, amazement in his voice. "Every civilian ship has them, buried in the system architecture. We just needed the activation codes to access them. We were always ready," Lisa said. "We just hoped we'd never need to be." A woman named Claire Sanders approached, carrying a tablet. She had been a teacher before boarding the Aurora. Now she was organizing the ship's intelligence network. "I've compiled psychological profiles on Valorian command staff," Claire said. "Based on their public statements and behavior patterns, we can predict how they'll respond to different scenarios. If we can capture their commanders alive and treat them well, it might cause confusion in their ranks. Valorians respect honor and strength. Showing mercy to defeated enemies is considered a sign of superior power in their culture. Lisa was impressed. How do you know all this? Claire smiled. I taught xenology to children for 20 years. The council thought we were just educating our kids about alien cultures for peaceful coexistence. We were actually conducting the longest intelligence operation in galactic history. Every human who interacted with aliens was gathering data, whether they knew it or not. All that information went into databases, analyzed and cataloged for exactly this scenario. Across human space, similar scenes played out on thousands of ships and stations. Humanity moved with purpose and coordination that seemed impossible for a species the Council considered primitive and fragmented. On Earth, Greg Palmer prepared for the final briefing before the Valorian fleet arrived. He looked at the assembled faces on his screens, representatives of every human world, and felt the weight of history pressing down on him. In 72 hours, the Valorian cleansing fleet will reach Novo Terra, he announced. They expect to find a defenseless colony world with 4 billion frightened humans waiting to surrender. Instead, they're going to encounter something they never imagined. He pulled up a tactical display. We evacuated Novo Terra completely. All 4 billion people are safely relocated to hidden stations and settlements. The planet looks inhabited because we left automated systems running. It's bait. When the Valorians move into orbit to begin bombardment, our fleet will hit them from concealed positions in the asteroid field. What about casualties? Someone asked. We're going to lose people in this fight. Quote, Greg nodded gravely. We will. War always has a cost. But we're fighting for our right to exist. The Council gave us no choice, so we'll do what humans have always done when backed into a corner. We'll survive, no matter the price. The room was silent for a moment. Then a representative from Mars spoke up. For 6,000 years, we've been the galaxy's peacemakers. We've mediated conflicts, built bridges between warring species, and shown everyone that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Now we show them one more lesson. Peaceful species are peaceful by choice, and that choice can be unmade when necessary. The Unity Council voted unanimously to proceed with the defense plan. As the meeting ended, Greg received a private message from Admiral Karen Blake, commander of the 1st Defense Fleet. Her ship, the Titan, was the first true warship humanity had built in 6,000 years. It looked strange, mixing ancient human design principles with modern technology adapted from Council sources. We're ready, Karen said simply. The fleet knows what to do. But Greg, once Admiral Karen Blake stood on the bridge of the Titan, watching the tactical display with calm focus. Around her, the crew moved efficiently through their pre-battle checks. These were not career military personnel. Most had been civilians 3 weeks ago. Teachers, engineers, doctors, artists, all trained in theoretical military operations that might never be used. Now those theories were becoming reality. The asteroid field around Novo Terra drifted in a slow, ancient dance. Hidden among the rocks were 800 human ships. Most of them converted civilian vessels like Lisa Grant's Aurora. They waited in complete silence. Their power signatures reduced to near zero. Invisible to conventional sensors. Status report, Karen commanded. Lieutenant Gary Foster checked his station. All ships report ready. Weapon systems charged. Cyber warfare teams standing by. The bait is active. On the tactical display, Novo Terra appeared peaceful and inhabited. Cities glowed with lights. Orbital stations maintained their normal traffic patterns. Automated systems sent out routine communication signals. To any observer, it looked like 4 billion humans waited on the surface, unaware of the doom approaching from deep space. Karen knew better. The planet was empty. Every man, woman, and child had been evacuated in the largest civilian operation in human history. The cities below were ghosts, maintained by computer systems and remote drones. It was all theater, designed to draw the Valorian fleet into a carefully prepared trap. Contact, the sensor officer announced. Multiple faster-than-light signatures at the system edge. Count is 2,000. No, 2,300 capital ships. It's the Valorian cleansing fleet. Karen felt her heartbeat quicken, but kept her voice steady. All ships maintain silence. Let them come. In the Aurora, hidden among the asteroids, Lisa Grant watched the same display. Her converted transport ship bristled with weapons now. Its cargo bays empty except for fighter craft and missiles. The crew moved quietly through their stations, every person focused on their assigned task. Peter Hughes, the engineer, monitored the weapon systems. Claire Sanders coordinated the cyber warfare team. Even the colonists who had been passengers 3 weeks ago now served as damage control crews, medical staff, and communication operators. Everyone had found their place in the organized chaos of preparation. "They're so confident," Peter whispered, watching the Valorian fleet advance in perfect formation. "They're not even trying to be careful." "Why would they?" Lisa replied. "They think we're helpless. They've spent 6,000 years watching humans be peaceful and cooperative. They have no idea what we're capable of when survival is at stake." The Valorian fleet entered the inner system at sublight speeds, their massive capital ships moving like predators approaching wounded prey. Each vessel was 5 times larger than anything in the human fleet, bristling with weapons and protected by shields designed to withstand planetary bombardment. High Sentinel Karvoth commanded the Valorian flagship Dominator from his elevated command throne. Around him, subordinate officers managed the invasion fleet with practiced efficiency. This was not the first time Karvoth had led cleansing operations. In his long career, he had pacified 17 lesser species that the Council deemed redundant. "Scan the planet," he ordered. "Confirm population centers." The sensor officer worked his station. Life sign readings consistent with expected population. 4 billion humans concentrated in major cities. No sign of evacuation. No sign of military mobilization. Karvoth's scales rippled with satisfaction. As expected, humans are a soft species. They've grown comfortable under Council protection. They never learned to stand on their own. He opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, move into bombardment positions. Target the 3 largest cities first. Make it quick and clean. There's no honor in prolonging suffering." The Valorian fleet spread out above Novo Terra in a wide formation, each battle group assigned to specific targets. They moved with absolute confidence, shields at minimal power, weapons charging for surface strikes. They never saw the attack coming. "Now," Karen commanded. Across the human fleet, cyber warfare teams activated in perfect synchronization. Years of study had revealed the Valorian fleet's weakness. Their ships used a centralized command network, similar to ancient human naval systems. It was efficient when everything worked properly. But like all centralized systems, it had a critical vulnerability. Claire Sanders, working from the Aurora's communications station, initiated the first attack. Her team injected carefully designed malware into the Valorian network through their own public communication channels. The code had been developed over decades, based on vulnerabilities human programmers had identified through innocent-looking software exchanges with Valorian civilians. On the Dominator, alarms began screaming. "Systems failure," the Valorian tactical officer shouted. "We're losing control of the navigation grid. Weapons targeting is offline. Shield modulators are not responding." Karvoth surged from his throne. "What is happening?" "Unknown hostile code in our network. It's spreading through the entire fleet. We're blind." 700 Valorian ships lost critical systems in the first 30 seconds. Navigation failed. Weapons locked. Shield generators fluctuated wildly. The proud formation dissolved into confusion as ships drifted or collided, their crews struggling to regain control. "All ships, weapons free," Karen ordered. The human fleet emerged from the asteroid field like wolves appearing from fog. They didn't rely on energy shields or advanced weapons. Instead, they used the oldest, most reliable technology in human history: kinetic weapons. Massive railguns hurled chunks of metal and rock at near-light speeds. The Valorian shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and plasma bursts, barely slowed the physical projectiles. Solid matter traveling at a fraction of light speed punched through shields, through armor, through the hulls of ships that had seemed invincible. Lisa watched her weapons officer, a former mathematics teacher named Paul Martinez, coordinate the Aurora's missile launch. "Target the command ships," she ordered. "We want to capture their leaders, not kill them." "Understood," firing precision strikes. The missiles were not explosive. They contained electromagnetic pulse generators and boarding equipment. When they struck Valorian command vessels, they disabled systems without destroying the ships. Human boarding teams followed immediately, moving through the disabled vessels with practiced efficiency. Commander Jerry Collins led one of these teams, storming the bridge of a Valorian destroyer. He expected resistance, expected to fight his way through the ship. Instead, he found the crew in confusion, struggling with systems they couldn't control. "Stand down," Jerry shouted, his team's weapons trained on the Valorians. "Drop your weapons, and you will not be harmed. We are taking you as prisoners of war under the protocols of honorable combat." The Valorian captain, a proud warrior named Zelkoth, stared in disbelief. His ship had been disabled in seconds. His crew was helpless. And the humans, the soft humans, were offering him the courtesy of surrender rather than simply killing everyone aboard. "We surrender," Zelkoth said slowly. "But you are supposed to be helpless. You're a peaceful species." Jerry lowered his weapon slightly. "We are peaceful. But peace is a choice, not a weakness. You forced us to make a different choice. Now drop your weapons, and you'll be treated with dignity and respect." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out on dozens of Valorian ships. Human boarding teams took prisoners, but provided immediate medical care for the wounded. They offered food and water to captured crews. They treated defeated enemies with the same respect they would want for themselves. On the Dominator, High Sentinel Karvoth finally regained partial control of his systems. He watched in horror as his fleet, the most powerful force in the sector, was systematically dismantled by converted civilian ships and tactics that seemed to come from ancient warfare manuals. "How?" he demanded. "How did they do this?" His intelligence officer pulled up data with shaking hands. "Sir, the humans have been studying us for 6,000 years. Every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange, every peace conference, they were gathering intelligence on our systems, our strategies, our weaknesses, and we never noticed because we thought they were harmless." Karvoth felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear that he had made a catastrophic miscalculation. The humans had not been weak. They had been patient. They had been learning. And now they were teaching the galaxy a lesson. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. "I would speak with their commander." Karen Blake's face appeared on the Dominator's main screen. She looked tired but determined. "High Sentinel Karvoth. I'm Admiral Karen Blake of the Human Defense Fleet. Are you surrendering?" Karvoth straightened despite his defeat. "I am. But I demand to know. How did your primitive species achieve this? We have technology thousands of years more advanced than yours." Karen's expression was hard. "You called us primitive. You called us weak. But you never tried to understand us. Humans have been at war for thousands of years before we joined your council. We nearly destroyed ourselves with that violence. When we chose peace, we didn't forget how to fight. We just chose not to, until you gave us no choice." She gestured to something off-screen. "Your fleet is disabled, not destroyed. Your casualties are minimal because we aim to capture, not kill. We could have annihilated you with nuclear weapons or biological agents. We have the technology, but we choose not to use it. That's the difference between humans and your council. We fight to survive, not to exterminate." Karvoth felt his scales ripple with shame and grudging respect. "What happens now?" "Now you and your crews will be treated as prisoners of war," Karen said. "You'll receive medical care, proper food, and dignified quarters, and you're going to watch what happens when the rest of the council sees what humanity can do when pushed to the edge. She closed the channel. Lisa Grant stood on the Aurora's bridge, surveying the battlefield. 800 human ships had engaged 2,300 Valorian vessels. The final count showed 800 enemy ships disabled or captured. Another 200 destroyed when their reactors exploded during system failures. And the rest retreating in disorder. Human losses: 200 ships damaged, 50 destroyed. It was not a perfect victory. Thousands of humans had died in those 50 ships. But compared to what the Valorians expected, complete human annihilation, it was a miracle. "Commander," Paul Martinez said quietly, "we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Other Council species are requesting diplomatic channels. They want to talk to us." Lisa felt exhausted but cautiously hopeful. "About what?" "About changing the Council," Paul replied. "About restructuring galactic governance. About giving humanity and other junior species equal representation." On Earth, Greg Palmer watched the battle reports flow into the War Coordination Center. The room erupted in cheers as the final casualty counts came in. He let his people celebrate for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. "This is one victory," he said firmly. "One battle. The Valorians are not the only threat. The Krith Collective has already announced they will continue the cleansing operation. Other species are watching to see what we do next." He pulled up a galaxy map. "We fought today to survive. But if we want to truly change things, we need to do more than just defeat our enemies. We need to show the galaxy a better way. We need to prove that humans are not just good at war. We're good at peace, when that peace is based on mutual respect and not submission." Dr. Rachel Morgan nodded. "The galaxy thought our peace was weakness. Now, they've seen our strength. The question is, what kind of species will we become? Will we be the new Valorians, using our power to dominate? Or will we be something better?" Number 4. Greg knew the answer. Humanity had spent 6,000 years proving they could cooperate, could build bridges, could choose peace over violence. One battle wouldn't change that fundamental nature. "We'll be better," he said simply. "We'll show them that strength and mercy aren't opposites. We'll show them that the most terrifying thing about humanity isn't our capacity for war. It's our capacity to forgive our enemies and invite them to build something better together." On the disabled Valorian flagship, High Sentinel Carvoth sat in his quarters under guard. A human medic had treated his minor injuries with care and professionalism. A human soldier had brought him food and water, and now a human diplomat was requesting permission to speak with him. He granted it, curious despite himself. The woman who entered was middle-aged, her expression serious but not unkind. "High Sentinel, my name is Nicole Patterson. I'm a human diplomatic officer. I wanted to speak with you before we transport you and your crew to a proper facility." The human embassy station hung in neutral space, a massive structure built in just 6 weeks by thousands of workers from across human territory. Greg Palmer stood at the observation window, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. 30 Council species had sent representatives, something that had never happened before in galactic history. Humanity had called this meeting, and for the first time, the galaxy was listening. Nicole Patterson reviewed her notes one final time before entering the main diplomatic chamber. She had spent 40 years as a human observer in Council proceedings, watching and learning while other species ignored her or treated her with patronizing dismissal. Those days were over. Now every species wanted to hear what humanity had to say. The chamber was designed without the traditional hierarchical seating. Every species had an equal place at the circular table. The Valorians, the Krith, the Lumens, and dozens of others sat facing each other, forced to acknowledge their peers rather than speaking down to inferiors. Nicole entered and the room fell silent. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady and clear. 6 weeks ago, the Valorian Empire declared war on humanity. They gave us 30 days to surrender or face cleansing operations. They expected us to either submit peacefully or be destroyed easily. Instead, we defeated their fleet and captured over 800 ships with minimal casualties on both sides. She pulled up a holographic display showing the battle statistics. We're not sharing this information to boast. We're sharing it to make a point. For 6,000 years, humanity has been a member of this council. In that time, we've served as mediators, translators, peacekeepers, and support personnel. We accepted the lowest status. We agreed to restrictions on our technology and territory. We were told this was necessary for galactic stability. Nicole's expression hardened. But the truth is, the old council system was never about stability. It was about maintaining power for the oldest, strongest species while exploiting the younger ones. And when we proved we could defend ourselves, suddenly the galaxy wants to negotiate. A Valorian representative, one of the Reform faction members, stood up. His name was Carvoth, the same High Sentinel who had led the failed cleansing operation. After his capture and release, he had returned to his homeworld and helped overthrow the Supreme Imperator who ordered humanity's destruction. Ambassador Patterson speaks truth, Carvoth said, his voice heavy with shame. My empire spent millennia conquering and dominating. We believed our age made us wise. Our power made us right. Humanity showed us otherwise. They defeated us with intelligence and mercy, two qualities we had forgotten in our pursuit of dominance. He looked around the chamber. I was taken prisoner by human forces. I expected torture or execution. Instead, I received medical treatment, proper food, and respect. My crew was treated the same way. Humans fought fiercely to defend themselves, but they showed mercy to defeated enemies. They proved that strength and compassion are not opposites. The Krith representative, a drone named Zexistal speaking for the Hive Collective, interrupted. This is all very moving, but the Krith Collective does not accept human dominance. We will continue the cleansing operation. Our fleet numbers 3,000 ships, and we do not make the mistakes the Valorians made. We will not be defeated by primitive tricks. Nicole met the Krith's compound eyes calmly. We know. Your fleet has been mobilizing for 3 weeks. You believe your hive mind coordination gives you an advantage over our individual decision-making. You think you understand our weaknesses. She pulled up new data. But you're wrong about one thing. We're not trying to dominate anyone. We're trying to change a broken system, and we're willing to prove it. Commander Scott Hayes, monitoring the proceedings from Earth, watched the next part of humanity's plan unfold with a mixture of pride and nervousness. This was the gamble that would determine whether humanity could truly change the galaxy or would just become another dominant power. The Krith think we'll fight them the same way we fought the Valorians, Greg said to his staff. They're wrong. We're going to show them something completely different. Dr. Victor Chen, humanity's leading quantum physicist, had spent the last 6 weeks perfecting a technology that would either prove humanity's commitment to peace or destroy their credibility forever. It was not a weapon, though it could be used as one. It was something far more revolutionary. The Krith fleet arrived at the edge of human space right on schedule. 3,000 ships, all operating with perfect hive mind coordination, moved as a single organism toward their target. The fleet commander, designated Hive Mind Primary Node 7, broadcast a simple message. Surrender, or be cleansed. You have 1 hour to comply. Admiral Karen Blake, commanding the human defense fleet from the Titan, did not respond with threats or defiance. Instead, she transmitted a single data packet. Hive Mind Primary Node 7. We are sending you detailed specifications for a new technology we've developed. It's called a quantum isolation field. We're not going to fight your fleet. We're going to demonstrate why your current form of existence is vulnerable, and then we're going to offer you a choice. On the Krith flagship, confusion rippled through the hive mind. What were the humans planning? They found out 60 seconds later. Human ships activated the quantum isolation field generators, technology based on decades of medical research into consciousness and quantum entanglement. The field didn't harm the Krith. It simply severed their hive mind connection temporarily, forcing each individual to experience independent consciousness for the first time in their species' history. The effect on the Krith fleet was immediate and total. Ships drifted or collided as pilots who had never made an independent decision suddenly found themselves alone in their own minds. The perfect coordination that made the Krith dangerous dissolved instantly. 3,000 ships became 3,000 confused individuals. But here was where humanity made their true statement. Instead of attacking the helpless fleet, human ships broadcast instructions. "Attention, Krith individuals," Karen's voice echoed across all frequencies. "You are experiencing consciousness separation. This is not permanent. You are not in danger. We are transmitting basic ship operation manuals and navigation assistance. You are free to reconnect to your hive mind at any time by moving outside the field radius. Or you can choose to remain independent. The choice is yours." "I'm self." She paused, letting that sink in. "We are also offering medical support and psychological counseling for those who find individual consciousness distressing. We are not your enemies. We are showing you that you have options you never knew existed." Zextal, the Krith drone who spoke at the diplomatic meeting, experienced individual consciousness for the first time in his existence. It was terrifying and exhilarating. Thoughts that were his alone formed in his mind. Choices that he could make without hive consensus became possible. And the humans, instead of killing him, were offering to help him understand this new experience. On the embassy station, Nicole watched the feeds from the Krith fleet. Some individuals panicked and fled back to hive mind connection immediately. Others hesitated, experimenting with independent thought. A few actively chose to remain separated, requesting asylum from humanity. "We just gave the Krith the ability to choose their own existence," Greg said quietly. "That's more revolutionary than any military victory." The diplomatic chamber erupted in debate. Some species accused humanity of cruelty for forcing consciousness change on the Krith. Others argued it was a gift. The Lumens, energy-based beings who had remained silent observers for most of galactic history, finally spoke. "Humans have passed a test," the Lumen representative said, their voice echoing through the chamber without physical form. "We have observed this galaxy for eons. We have watched countless young species rise to power. Most use that power to dominate others, repeating the cycle of oppression. Humanity is the first species to gain strength and then choose to use it for liberation rather than conquest." The Lumen continued. 6,000 years ago, when humans joined the Council, we began watching them closely. We saw a species that nearly destroyed itself with violence, then chose a different path. We saw them accept humiliation and restriction with patience. We wondered if they would become oppressors when given the chance, or if they would truly be different. Nicole felt her heart race. The Lumens were the oldest, most powerful species in known space. Their opinion carried weight beyond any military force. "Today, humanity has proven itself," the Lumen declared. "They defeated the Valorians with intelligence and mercy. They disabled the Krith without killing, and most importantly, they offer others the choice to change, rather than forcing change upon them. For these reasons, we support humanity's proposal to restructure the Council based on equality and mutual respect." The chamber fell silent. If the Lumens supported humanity, the political landscape of the entire galaxy would shift. Karvoth stood again. "The Valorian Republic, the reformed government that replaced the old empire, also supports this proposal. We offer formal alliance with humanity, including technology sharing and mutual defense. We acknowledge that our attempt to exterminate humanity was both morally wrong and strategically foolish. We ask for the opportunity to make reparations and build a genuine partnership." Species after species began voicing their positions. The smaller, younger ones, who had suffered under the old council hierarchy, overwhelmingly supported change. Even some of the older species, seeing the writing on the wall, agreed that reform was necessary. But not everyone accepted the new order peacefully. A delegation of conservative species, including loyalist factions from the Krith, Valorian, and several others, announced they would not participate in the restructured council. They retreated to the galaxy's outer rim, forming what they called the Sovereignty Pact. They numbered about 200 worlds, clinging to old hierarchies and traditional power structures. "What do we do about them?" Karen asked Greg during a private communication. "They could become a problem in the future." Greg considered for a moment. "Nothing. We let them go. If we force them to join the new council, we become exactly what we're trying to stop. We prove that our talk of equality and choice is hollow. Instead, we show patience. We keep communication channels open. We demonstrate that the new system works better than the old one. Eventually, they'll either change on their own or become irrelevant. Karen nodded slowly. You're gambling that our way is genuinely better, not just more powerful. Yes, Greg agreed. Because if we're not better, if we're just another empire with prettier words, then we don't deserve to succeed. Back on the embassy station, Nicole presented humanity's final proposal. It was comprehensive, addressing everything from equal representation and transparent governance to mutual defense pacts and fair economic exchange. Most radically, it proposed rotating leadership among all council species, including the youngest ones. This system will be messy, Nicole admitted. It will be slower than having one dominant species make all decisions. There will be disagreements and conflicts, but it will be fair. Every species will have a voice. Every world will have value. And no one will live under the threat of cleansing operations just because older species find them redundant. The vote took 3 days. In the end, 46 species joined the new council structure. 12 refused, joining the Sovereignty Pact instead. 8 remained neutral, wanting to observe before committing. It was not a perfect victory, but it was real progress. Commander Jerry Collins, who had led the boarding operations against the Valorian fleet, found himself in an unexpected role. He was assigned to help train the new Combined Defense Initiative, a joint military force made up of ships from multiple species. His job was to teach them what humanity had learned over millennia of warfare. That the goal of fighting is to protect, not to destroy. This feels strange. One of his students, a young Valorian warrior named Corvin, said during a training exercise, "We were taught that strength means dominating others. You teach that strength means protecting others. These seem like opposites." Jerry smiled. "They're not opposites. They're choices. You can use strength to take, or you can use it to give. Humanity tried both ways over our history. We learned that taking might bring short-term victory, but giving builds long-term survival. Your great-grandfather commanded the fleet that tried to exterminate my species. Now you're learning from me how to defend species that can't defend themselves. That's not weakness. That's evolution." On Earth, Dr. Rachel Morgan archived all the diplomatic proceedings and battle records in the Human Heritage Project database. Future generations would study these events, learning how humanity transformed from junior members of an oppressive council into founders of a new, more equal galactic community. "Do you think it will last?" her assistant asked. "The new council? The peace? All of it?" Rachel considered the question carefully. "Nothing lasts forever. There will be new conflicts, new challenges, species that try to return to the old ways of dominance. But we've proven something important. We've shown the galaxy that cooperation isn't naive idealism. It's practical survival strategy. Species that work together are stronger than species that fight alone, even if cooperation is harder and messier." She pulled up images from across council space. Humans and Valorians working side by side on joint projects. Krith individuals learning to balance hive mind connection with personal choice. Lumen energy beings sharing their ancient knowledge with younger species. All of it happening because humanity chose mercy over vengeance and partnership over domination. "The galaxy thought we were weak," Rachel said. "They learned we were strong. But more importantly, they learned that strength without wisdom is just violence, and violence eventually destroys everyone. If we've taught them nothing else, we've taught them that. And that's worth 6,000 years of patience." Lisa Grant sat in her quarters on the Aurora, writing a letter to her daughter. The ship had been partially restored to civilian configuration, though it retained some defensive capabilities. Lisa would be returning. 6 months had passed since the Valorian War ended. Lisa Grant walked through the newly constructed council chambers, marveling at how different they were from the old structure. There were no elevated platforms for senior species, no distant observation seats for junior members. Every representative sat at the same level, their voices carrying equal weight. It was messy and sometimes frustratingly slow, but it was fair, and fairness, Lisa had learned, was worth the inconvenience. She was here as Earth's rotating representative, a position that changed every month among hundreds of qualified humans. The old council would have demanded a permanent ambassador, someone who could be controlled or influenced over time. The new system made corruption much harder. In the main chamber, delegates from 46 species debated a proposal about resource allocation in the frontier regions. The discussion had been going on for 2 days. Under the old council, the Valorians would have simply decided the matter, and everyone else would have accepted it. Now, every species had input. It was slower, but the final decision would be something everyone could support rather than resent. Commander Jerry Collins stood in a converted facility that now served as the Combined Defense Initiative Training Center. Around him, young warriors from a dozen species learned not just combat tactics, but the philosophy behind defensive operations. His star student remained Corvan, the young Valorian, whose great-grandfather had ordered humanity's extermination. "Today we're studying the Battle of Novo Terra," Jerry announced to the class. Not the tactics, but the decisions. Admiral Blake had the opportunity to destroy the entire Valorian fleet. Her weapons were sufficient. The enemy was helpless, but she chose to capture rather than kill. Can anyone tell me why? A Krith student, one of the individuals who chose to remain partially separated from the hive mind, raised a limb. Because killing defeated enemies makes future enemies less likely to surrender. It prolongs wars and increases casualties on both sides. Correct, Jerry said. But there's more to it than that. Humans learned over thousands of years of warfare that victory is not about destroying your enemy. It's about achieving your objective. Our objective was survival and recognition, not revenge. Killing the Valorians would have satisfied anger. But it wouldn't have built the peace we needed. Corvan spoke up. But what if an enemy refuses to surrender? What if they fight to the death no matter what mercy you offer? Jerry's expression became serious. Then you do what you must to survive. Mercy is not suicide. We offer the option for peaceful surrender. But we don't die for it. The key is to make sure your enemy knows that surrender is a genuine choice, not a trap. If they choose to fight anyway, at least you gave them the option. On Earth, Greg Palmer sat in his new office at the Galactic Strategic Academy. He had retired from active command, but found himself teaching the next generation about the lessons humanity had learned through millennia of conflict. His classroom was filled with students from 20 species, all eager to understand how humanity had transformed from victims to peace founders in such a short time. The secret, Greg told them, is that it wasn't short. It took 6,000 years of patience. 6,000 years of watching, learning, and preparing. The galaxy saw those years as submission. We saw them as education. A young Lumen student, manifesting as a swirl of glowing energy, asked, "But wasn't that deceptive? You pretended to be weak while secretly growing stronger." Greg shook his head. "We didn't pretend to be anything. We were genuinely peaceful. We genuinely wanted cooperation over conflict. But peaceful doesn't mean helpless. We were like a person who learns self-defense not because they want to fight, but because they want to protect themselves if someone attacks them. The difference is crucial." He pulled up historical data showing human development over the 6 millennia of Council membership. Every weapon we designed, every strategy we developed, it was all defensive. We never planned to invade Valorian space or conquer other species. We just made sure that if someone tried to exterminate us, we could defend ourselves effectively. Dr. Victor Chen continued his groundbreaking work with Krith individuals who chose consciousness separation. His clinic had become a model for helping beings transition from collective to individual existence. Some Krith came for temporary separation, wanting to experience independence before returning to the hive mind. Others chose permanent separation, learning to live as individuals. Zixtal, one of the first Krith to choose permanent independence, now worked as Chen's assistant. He had taken a personal name, something the hive mind never needed, and was learning about human concepts like personal identity and individual goals. "Do you regret the choice?" Victor asked during one of their regular sessions. Zixtal considered the question carefully. Sometimes, the hive mind is comfortable. There's no loneliness, no doubt, no personal fear, but there's also no personal joy, no individual achievement, no unique perspective. I miss the certainty of collective existence, but I wouldn't trade the freedom of individual thought for anything. He looked at Victor with his compound eyes. Humans gave us a choice we didn't know we needed. Some of my people are angry about that, saying you broke something sacred, but you didn't break anything. You showed us we could choose how to exist. That's a gift, even if it's a difficult one. Admiral Karen Blake now commanded not a battle fleet but the Combined Defense Initiative, a truly multinational force that protected Council space from external threats. Her ships came from 16 different species, all working together under shared protocols that humanity had helped develop. The CDI's mission was explicitly defensive. They guarded frontier regions, responded to emergencies, and protected species that couldn't defend themselves. But they never enforced Council decisions on unwilling members. That would have turned them into the same oppressive force the old Council used. It's frustrating sometimes, Karen admitted to Greg during a private conversation. We have the power to force compliance, to make species do what we think is right. But we don't, because that would make us exactly what we fought against. Greg nodded. That's the hard part of having principles. Living by them when it's inconvenient. The Sovereignty Pact still exists out there, clinging to old hierarchies. We could conquer them if we wanted, but that would prove we're just another empire with better propaganda. So we wait, Karen said, and demonstrate that our way works better. Exactly. Patience is humanity's greatest weapon. We proved that over 6,000 years. We can prove it again. Dr. Rachel Morgan had transformed the Human Heritage Project from a secret archive into a public institution. Species from across the galaxy now came to study human history, particularly the period when humanity nearly destroyed itself and chose a different path. One day, a group of Valorian scholars visited the museum. They stood before displays showing Earth's wars, its environmental collapse, its near extinction in the 21st century. They saw the moment when humanity decided cooperation was more valuable than competition, when survival became more important than dominance. This is what we never understood, one of the scholars said. We thought our age made us wise. We thought our military power made us superior. But you learned something in your short existence that we forgot over eons. You learned that the species that survives is not the strongest, but the most adaptable. Rachel smiled. You're learning it now. That's what matters. The old Valorian Empire is gone, replaced by a republic that values cooperation. Your great-grandchildren will grow up in a galaxy that's fairer than anything we knew. That's not defeat, that's evolution. The Lumens, having finally revealed their ancient knowledge to the Council, shared technology and wisdom that advanced every species by centuries. But they did so carefully, making sure that advancement came with understanding. They had watched too many young species destroy themselves with technology they weren't ready for. A Lumen elder, one who had existed for millions of years, spoke with Lisa during one of her visits to their nebula home. Humanity surprised us, the being said, their voice resonating through space itself. In all our observation of galactic history, we have seen only one other species make the choice you made. They died out long before your kind evolved. We began to think it was impossible for aggressive species to choose peace while retaining the capacity for war. What happened to that other species? Lisa asked. They were exterminated by a younger, more violent race that saw their peace as weakness. We learned then that observation without intervention is cowardice. We should have protected them. We didn't. That's why we spoke up for humanity. We would not make that mistake twice. The Lumen shifted, their energy form rippling with what might have been emotion. Your species is young, but you understand something that takes most species millions of years to learn, if they learn it at all. Strength without compassion is brutality. Compassion without strength is vulnerability. True wisdom is having both and knowing when to use which. On the frontier of Council space, a human exploration ship made first contact with a new species, one just developing faster than light travel. Captain Angela Wright approached the situation with extreme care, remembering how the Valorians had arrived at Earth 6,000 years ago with overwhelming force. Instead of making demands or imposing conditions, Angela simply introduced herself and offered friendship. She shared knowledge freely, explained the council structure honestly, including both its benefits and challenges. And most importantly, she made it clear that joining was a choice, not a requirement. The new species, called the Tertani, were cautious but interested. They asked many questions, particularly about humanity's history. When they learned that humans had been threatened with extinction just months ago and responded by defeating their attackers and then offering mercy, the Tertani were astounded. "You could have become conquerors," the Tertani leader said. "You had proven your military strength. You could have demanded submission from weaker species. Why didn't you?" Quote, Angela thought about all the history lessons, all the stories of Earth's near destruction, all the reasons humanity had chosen peace 6,000 years ago. Because we remember what it's like to be the weak one. We remember being at the mercy of more powerful species. We choose not to put others in that position. It's not complicated. It's just choosing to treat others the way we wish we had been treated. The Tertani eventually chose to join the council, not out of fear or necessity, but because they saw an alliance worth being part of. Nicole Patterson, now serving as the council's chief diplomatic coordinator, reflected on the changes 6 months had brought. The galaxy was far from perfect. Conflicts still arose, species still disagreed, and the Sovereignty Pact remained a reminder that not everyone accepted the new order. But it was progress. Real, measurable progress toward a galaxy based on cooperation rather than domination. She received a message from Carvoth, the reformed Valorian leader who had become an unexpected ally. His message was simple. "Thank you for showing us a better way. My grandchildren will grow up in a republic rather than an empire. They will learn that strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. That is a gift we could never have given ourselves." Nicole shared the message with Greg, who smiled with tired satisfaction. 6 months ago, he was trying to exterminate us. Now he's thanking us for defeating him. That's the strangest victory I've ever heard of. "It's the only victory worth having," Nicole replied. "If we had just destroyed the Valorians, we'd have one less enemy, but we wouldn't have gained an ally. Now we have partners instead of subjects. That's what changes galaxies." Lisa Grant sat in her quarters aboard the Aurora, which had returned to its primary role as a civilian transport. She was writing in a journal, adding to the family tradition that had started with her great-great-grandmother in the 21st century. "We survived," she wrote. "Not just the Valorian War, but 6,000 years of patient waiting. And we didn't survive by becoming monsters or by accepting submission. We survived by being exactly what we've always been. Humans who remember both our worst and our best, and choose our best every day." She paused, thinking about her daughter who now worked helping former Krith Hive members adapt to individual existence. "You asked me once if I thought we were special, if humans had something other species lacked. I don't think we're special. I think we're just old enough to have made terrible mistakes, and young enough to remember them clearly. Other species either forgot their violent pasts or never learned from them. We learned because we didn't have a choice. Earth nearly died, and we barely saved it. That memory, that understanding of how close we came to extinction, that's what makes us different. Not superior, just different. And maybe that difference is enough to change the galaxy, one choice at a time." Commander Jerry Collins stood before his graduating class at the CDI Training Center, students from a dozen species, all trained in defensive operations and the philosophy of protective strength, waited for his final words. "You'll all serve in the Combined Defense Initiative," Jerry said. "You'll protect species that can't protect themselves. You'll respond to emergencies and guard against external threats. But remember this: we are not an army of conquest. We are guardians. The moment we start using our power to impose our will on others, we become exactly what we fought to stop." He looked at Corvan, who would be commanding a mixed species unit. Your great-grandfather ordered my species exterminated. You're now pledging to protect species weaker than your own. That transformation, from predator to guardian, that's what the new council is about. Remember it every day. On Earth, in the Capitol building that now served as Council Coordination Center, Greg Palmer prepared to address humanity's population. 6 months had brought enormous changes, and people deserved to understand what had been accomplished and what challenges remained. 6,000 years ago, Greg began, his speech broadcast across human space. Our ancestors chose to join the Galactic Council. They accepted restrictions and limitations because the alternative was extinction. Many wondered if that choice was surrender, if we had given up our independence to survive. Today, I can tell you with certainty, it was not surrender. It was patience. He pulled up images from the recent months. The Battle of Novo Terra, the diplomatic revolution, the formation of the new council based on equality rather than hierarchy. Our ancestors knew something important. They knew that species survive not by being the strongest, but by being the wisest. They chose to wait, to learn, to prepare. They passed that knowledge to their children, who passed it to their children, for 6,000 years. We are the inheritors of that patience. 6 months ago, the Valorians tried to exterminate us. We proved we could defend ourselves. But more importantly, we proved we could win without becoming monsters. We defeated our enemies and then offered them mercy. We gained allies instead of subjects. We changed a galactic system that had oppressed younger species for eons. Greg's expression became serious. But this is not the end of challenges. The Sovereignty Pact still exists. Clinging to old hierarchies, new conflicts will arise. Species will test whether we truly mean what we say about equality and cooperation, and we must prove, every single day, that our words match our actions. The galaxy thought we were weak because we chose peace. They learned we were strong. But true strength is not about military power. It's about having the power to destroy your enemies and choosing instead to make them into friends. It's about being capable of terrible violence and choosing mercy. That's the lesson humanity offers to the galaxy. He paused, letting his words sink in. We are not the oldest species. We are not the most technologically advanced. We do not have the largest territory or the biggest fleet, but we have something that matters more than any of those things. We have the wisdom to know that cooperation is not weakness, that peace is not surrender, and that the species that treats others with dignity and respect is the one that truly deserves to lead. 6,000 years ago, our ancestors planted a seed. They chose patience over pride, preparation over panic, and wisdom over warfare. Today, that seed has grown into something remarkable, a new galactic order based on equality, a council where every voice matters, a future where species are judged not by their age or power, but by their character and contributions. Greg concluded with the words his great-grandfather had spoken when humanity first joined the council. We choose to be better than we were. We choose to wait, to learn, to grow. And when the galaxy gave us no choice but to fight, we showed them that peace was always our choice, not our limitation. That's humanity's legacy. Not our weapons, not our technology. Our choice to be better, every single day. Lisa Grant watched the speech from her ship, feeling tears on her cheeks. She thought about all the people who had died in the fighting, all the sacrifices made, all the patience required over 6 millennia. And she thought about the future her daughter would inherit. A galaxy that was fairer and more just than anything previous generations had known. The old council thought humanity was primitive, weak, and redundant. They never understood that humanity's greatest strength was not what they showed, but what they chose not to show until absolutely necessary. The capacity for terrible violence combined with the wisdom to use it only as a last resort. The ability to defeat enemies and then extend a hand in friendship rather than domination. After 6,000 years, aliens declared war on humanity. And humanity's answer was indeed terrifying. Not because of the weapons they deployed, but because of the future they refused to surrender. They showed the galaxy that the most dangerous species is not the one that looks fierce, but the one that looks gentle until you threaten its survival. And then, having proven their strength, they immediately chose to use it for building rather than destroying. That was humanity's true gift to the galaxy. Not military power or advanced technology, but the wisdom to know that lasting peace comes not from forcing others to submit, but from giving everyone a reason to cooperate. From treating former enemies with the same dignity and respect you want for yourself. From choosing, every single day, to be better than you could be. Because being better is the only way to survive in the long run. The stars shone through Lisa's window, each one representing a world now part of a new galactic community, built on principles humanity had learned through painful experience. The journey had taken 6,000 years and countless sacrifices. But looking at those stars, at the future they represented, Lisa knew it had been worth every moment of patience. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. But more importantly, they would never have to fear them either. That was the real victory. That was what made the 6,000 years of waiting worthwhile. That was what it meant to be human in a galaxy, learning, slowly and painfully. That cooperation was not submission. That peace was not weakness. And that the future belonged not to the strongest, but to the wisest. And wisdom, humanity had proven, was worth any amount of patience. To transport duty, ferrying not just colonists but also diplomatic delegations between worlds. "The war is over," she wrote. "We won, though it didn't feel like the victories I read about in history books. We didn't conquer anyone or claim new territory. We just forced the galaxy to recognize that we deserve to exist and to be treated as equals. I suppose that's a different kind of winning. Your generation will inherit a galaxy that's fairer than the one I grew up in. Make sure you keep it that way." She looked out at the stars, thinking about everything that had changed in just 6 weeks. Humanity had gone from potential victims of genocide to founders of a new galactic order. The cost had been high, thousands of human lives lost in the fighting. But the alternative would have been extinction, and they had achieved it all by remembering one simple truth: that cooperation is not submission, that peace is not weakness, and that the species that survives is not always the strongest, but the one wise enough to know when to fight and when to build. "Have you come to gloat?" Carvoth asked bitterly. "No," Nicole said. "I came to ask you a question. In 6,000 years, did you or anyone in your empire ever actually study human history? Did you look at what we were before we joined the council?" Carvoth was silent. "I thought not," Nicole continued. "If you had, you would have learned that humans spent most of our history fighting each other. We developed thousands of ways to kill, to conquer, to dominate. We nearly destroyed our own planet with our violence. But we learned something from all that death and suffering. We learned that strength without wisdom leads to extinction. We learned that peace is not surrender, it's survival." She stood to leave. "You thought you were teaching us civilization. But we were already civilized. We just chose to let you think otherwise while we learned everything about you. That patience, that willingness to appear weak while growing stronger, that's what makes humanity dangerous. Not our weapons, our wisdom." As she left, Carvoth sat in the quiet room and realized the full scope of his defeat. The humans had not just won a battle. They had won because they understood something the Council had forgotten over millions of years of dominance. The greatest victories come not from being the strongest, but from being the smartest. And humanity had used 6,000 years to become very smart indeed. Do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. "I know," Greg replied. "But better they see us as strong than watch us die as weak. Humanity chose peace because we were wise enough to know its value. Now we choose to fight because we're wise enough to know when peace isn't possible anymore." He closed the channel and looked around the coordination center. Thousands of years of preparation were about to be tested. Humanity had spent 6 millennia building a reputation as peaceful, cooperative, and harmless. In 72 hours, They would show the galaxy what lay beneath that carefully maintained image. They would show them that the most dangerous predator isn't the one that looks fierce. It's the one that looks gentle until you threaten its survival. One demanded control. They all spoke with one voice. "The Unity Council is now in session," Greg announced. "Humanity has 30 days to prepare. The Valorians expect us to surrender or die. We're going to show them there's a third option they never considered. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten a species that chose peace but never forgot how to survive." Across human space, 10 billion people on Earth and 15 billion in the colonies received the same message. And every single one of them knew exactly what to do.